Hi, Frank Casale here, submitting episode 5 of The Transaction for your edutainment pleasure. In this episode, the focus is really to get down to a qualified shortlist of 3 viable service providers. Easier said than done when you have multiple managers and stakeholders, and certainly multiple perspectives. Will facts win out over opinion? See for yourself in episode 5.
The presentation which I heard was very high level.
It was like a deluge of detail, maybe at some point too much so.
Because I disagree with you on the
okay.
high level on art.
You know more about that.
They took a risk with that strategy.
I'm still not sure of that customer service focus.
They're the guys to be, as I see it.
What are you going to grade it?
The most challenging part of this project has really been the pressure of time.
Under the normal circumstances, it would take about anywhere from 3 to 4 months to go through the process of selecting who the provider is.
You need to do all that in 90 days.
At the end of the process, it's 6 months has gone by, and you have a contract in place and you have your process implemented with an outsourced provider.
Actually, we need to do that in 6 weeks.
Everybody said you can't do it in such a short period of time. But working together and understanding the strategy that was in place and also understanding the timeline that was necessary, we are going to be able to do it.
We're not going to be able to down select by the end of this week. 0 to 4. 0 meaning it does not perform this activity. 1 is partially performs, 2 meets expectations, 3 exceeds, and 4 is the wow.
This is like an outsourcing Rubik's Cube here, right? Because on one hand you're saying RPO versus contingent, on the other hand you're saying U.S. versus Europe.
Right.
On the other hand you're saying where they are. So overall, I pick a 2 overall. 2. You can do it.
Part of the issue is you learn about your own organization and what you really need as you go through the process.
Some companies want to outsource only to a low-cost provider, and that's what's important to them. Other companies want to outsource only to the highest quality provider. Some are looking to leverage technologies within their own organization. And others, it's a blend of all of those.
The RPO capabilities is where we wanted to focus, right? And so when I read the response, I thought it was weak, right? Based on what we saw in the written, it was weak, and I even scored them very low based on that assessment. But I think after I listened to them today, I was impressed. I was wowed.
I was not expecting much today from them, but I was wowed at the end by the compliance structure that they have from top to bottom.
They can do contract labor. Their pricing, as Carol said very articulately, as I tried to repeat very articulately, is way out of whack.
They aren't showing their strengths, and they definitely didn't do their homework. So I know they can do it. So it should probably be a 2, but
2 with modified notes.
It's a weak 2, yeah.
RPO, my God, these guys are really deep in RPO.
So RPO 4, contract labor 1, 0.
Well, I still don't have enough information to address even general capabilities for contract labor.
So
there's a confident part in all of us that believe that this still can be done, but I think the realist in several of us on the team right now, the realist is wondering if we're going to be able to pull this off.
The other thing that threw off many of the service providers that were here is that the impact of the accelerated process on their process, meaning they normally would have a marketing presentation, then some discussions, and then so many of these were forced to really collapse. I'm not sure if any one of them have been involved in a process this quickly.
They have no office structure. There's nothing they can do to get on board and do contract
My
labor.
sense is it's almost as if that, although they pitched it as a dual play, you would consider them as a single play.
Right.
Well, yes, but I would
Okay,
suggest that it's not a 0, it's a 1.
Right.
Because they
Contract labor,
did
it's a 1.
do have
They have a
alignment,
partner.
and you
Okay.
can't push
The
them
one
into
tomorrow will be
alignment.
0.
And maybe it's too late for this. But if I was to do it over again, I would suggest that we have the pure play players come in and just talk about their pure play. Not put them on the spot to pick a partner.
Lots of people can say they can do a lot of things, but what we are finding is there are very few players who really can do both well and say they can do both well.
This is something that nobody's doing, I think. So we are asking companies to come out with something that nobody's doing. So they will try to do their best about they think they can do it, right?
Where they're going to really need to shore up is they're going to have to partner with someone, because with the model changing, it's not going to be selecting RPO companies in the future. It's going to be selecting a player that does it all.
I'm not suggesting that the decision is RPO versus contract services. What I'm saying is the decision is going to be domestic
Versus global.
versus global. And you're going to make your decision on a domestic capability. You're going to put that in place. That's phase 1. Now, it may be stronger contract services, but whoever it is will have a strategic mindset globally.
Yes, but whoever we select domestically has to have some ties globally.
That's right.
But if they don't, if they're too new at the game, it ain't going to work.
I told all the suppliers that they can go out on Kodak.com, they can search our database, see what requisitions are open, and get a sense of the types of positions that they would be asked to hire. And they're the only ones that did that.
I think it's also fair to point out they have not been in business that long. That's something you have to consider as you're pulling this together.
Let me give my assessment now, which I think may surprise some people. Okay, first of all, I thought they were extremely too slick. Okay, it was all very, very slick, very rehearsed in my mind. I've seen that before with other presentations.
I don't have a problem with Slick. They were marketing people, and they did a good job in showcasing their company, and they had depth behind it. They could support what they did.
The depth came after the first half an hour of slickness.
When you look at recruiting and bringing a talent into a company, it's sales.
It's about Slick.
It's about sales and it's about slick.
I don't know how they got here on this short list when there's a lot of other RPO companies that have been there for a great many more years. Is this the only stand-alone RPO player that we're looking at that isn't combining with somebody else?
Okay, good point. This is the only one that opted for one single approach.
I was under the impression that every standalone was going to partner with somebody, but just to make a presentation by themselves throws this whole thing off,
Well,
in my perspective.
we told them in New York that they could.
So if this contract agreement were split
Yes.
up, you would really prefer to do the RPO than to do the contract labor? You're not disqualifying yourself, you're just clarifying yourself.
We did not say a requirement was you have to partner.
We suggested it.
I think it was built into the deal. If we're having second thoughts about it, then it's really...
But it
No,
could
I
be-
still think it was the right approach.
It could be
it's
something that we got to be cautious about down the line.
But we could tell them we want you to partner, so
That's a good
submit
point.
a
Which
second
is what we
bid
have
instead,
suggested,
right.
but we can't force anybody.
We have over and over again said you have to document every step of this process as to why you are
What
where
are the
you're at.
reasons?
The more we can make this a visible, transparent, open process, we can sort of avert that 6 months from now someone coming back and saying, why wasn't I included? I do $1 million in business when...
Haven't we all along said that there's a possibility that these service categories could get separated?
Yes, we
and I
were
agree,
very
but
clear.
And they're going to be
should have-
evaluated separately.
We should have added a few more RPO standalones then it would have solved the whole thing. in
I
my
think
mind.
we have too many RPO standalones already.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's a debate.
I do.
Well, this is a trade-off. This is an accelerated process, and this is one of the trade-offs.
If other RPO companies find out that if we separate this into a single RPO selector, they might cry foul. They might come and say, now wait a minute, why wasn't I given a chance to compete? Because you selected one RPO company alone, and if we select them as the RPO company, there will be some people complaining. Because if we're comparing everybody that's been teaming up, and they're standing alone, and the next one comes in with a partner, then we may have to disqualify this company. When we first met you in New York City,
At the end of the day, it's about finding the right people, right?
Right.
we listened to all of you.
I struggled with that one a little bit.
We're at a very important crossroads right now, and this is what we're calling the final. You're still in the hunt, and the data that you support us with today is all going to be taken into account.
I know which organization wowed us.